Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Hey, you remember when the Lakers offense kind of sucked? Not a problem anymore. We'll explain next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube. So we're 23,000 plus subscribers are all hanging out and trying to figure out, Andy, where are these signs that this Lakers team might actually be more dangerous than their record and their seeding suggests? A few different numbers that have surfaced on Monday after the big weekend for the Lakers, so the totality of some offensive data, Andy, is really coming in. And like I said in the open, we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the season talking about how problematic and bad this offense was. This team was offensively. It is not a problem anymore.
You mentioned dangerousness, and as we talked about after the win over the Timberwolves per Tankathon, the Lakers are now down to 17th for remaining strength of schedule. This stuff can be fluid, but that is a major, major drop in a good way in terms of where the Lakers have been, and it gives them, an opportunity to prove just how dangerous they can be. And for those keeping score at home, in terms of the teams they're most directly chasing, the Suns currently have the hardest strength of schedule in the entire league. Sacramento, who they play on Wednesday, number 7. To whatever degree you still consider them chasing the number 5 seed Pelicans, who the Lakers currently have a 2-1 series advantage over. Pelicans are 8th, and then Dallas 21, Golden State 23. Golden State, however, in a bit of shambles with Steph out indefinitely, or certainly I don't think he's expected to miss the rest of the season, but they don't know when he's going
there's
to
no
be back.
timeline on him as far as I've
Right.
seen.
Right, exactly. So I mean, I say indefinitely just in the most literal sense, but the Lakers finally, it feels like, have, after a couple more tough games, an opportunity to actually A, rest, which they did today, and B, maybe take out this offensive explosion on some crappy teams. And you mentioned the numbers, Brian. I did some digging over the last 15 games. By the way, 15, the team is 10-5 since Rui moved into the starting lineup over those 15 games. So that in and of itself probably explains to some degree the extra juice offensively this team has had. In those 15 games, they are 4th in the league for points per game, 2nd for offensive rating, 1st for overall field goal percentage, 4th for three-point percentage, 1st for points in the paint, 9th for fast break points, 4th for unassisted three-pointers. I imagine the lion's share of that is D'Lo and Lebron, but those two guys do dial up their own shots from behind the arc quite often. 10th for turnovers per game. They're just like basically a turnover away from leading the league for fewest turnovers per game in this 15 games, 9th for turnover percentage. And by the way, this happened while the Lakers ranked just 13th for free throws attempted per game. So it's not even like junk offense anymore that the Lakers used to rely on to get points, because
they didn't run it like they couldn't score in the half. They put up points, but they couldn't score in the half court. Everything was either at the line or on the break.
Not anymore.
Nope.
Not anymore.
You know, it's interesting to see. Like, look, a lot of this is, the 3-point shooting, as you noted in there, has really come around for a while. The question has really been more with the Lakers, the quantity of threes that they shoot.
Yeah, still not even close to it. They're, I believe, 29th during this period. Like, guys, just take more.
Yeah, and look, some of it is because there's not a lot of great distribution through the roster. I mean, with some of the, we can get into some of the issues around the bench and stuff like that, if not in this show over the week. Like, there's not that, you have D'Lo in the starting lineup. LeBron had been taking a ton of threes at different points in the last few games. I only took 4 the other night. has been attacking a little bit more, getting a little bit more downhill. AD is not obviously taking that many. Austin Reeves takes a certain amount, but like off the bench, you've got Prince now, but Prince playing fewer minutes means there are fewer threes because that was really, his jam. So some of that is related to the roster, but the actual percentage, the amount of 3-pointers that go in per attempt has been pretty good for this team for a little while now. It just hasn't totally made the impact I think everybody would want.
Over the last 15 games, they have 5 guys, Torian, Rui, LeBron, Austin, D'Lo, shooting 38% or better on 3.3 in the case of Torian, threes per game or more. That's good.
Yes.
That is really good. Again, if I may offer a suggestion, more.
Yeah. It's, it's obviously it's related to Anthony Davis. It's obviously related to a healthy LeBron James. I think so much of this is related to the fact that D'Angelo Russell continues to play well. Like I think there was some concern that perhaps after the All-Star, I know you expressed it, the All-Star, that just because he has been an inconsistent player at different points in the season, in his career and things like that, you would get this sort of peak D'Lo going into the deadline, which, by the way, in and of itself is an unusual thing for players who are on the block. Oftentimes they get worse, not better, but he really reacted well to that and all of those things. But he's continued to do it. Austin Reeves has been better, consistently now, showing himself maybe to be one of these guys who just plays better over the second half of a season. And the emergence of Rui as a scorer, like that's when the Lakers can put up a lot of points. The issue is it is all, like, as good as the offense has been, it is all concentrated in the starting lineup. There is zero consistent bench scoring right now, at least with who the Lakers have available to them. And not that the guys coming back, Christian Wood, Vanderbilt, Gabe Vincent, hopefully, and we'll get into some of these updates, are necessarily volume scorers, but they might distribute things a little bit differently in terms of who can play when to give the Lakers more consistent scoring through the rotation. If they can achieve that, Andy, now we're really talking about something.
Yeah, a big part of that has actually been Spencer Dinwiddie, and he recently gave some quotes, one to Mike Trudell, sideline reporter for the Lakers, about being asked when he got picked up by the team to really lean into being a defense first type player. And he said, quote, "Just understanding the team that I'm coming to, we already had a team set in stone. I wasn't traded. I ain't going to lie. Scoring the ball is fun. High usage offense is fun, but you got to be able to adapt. We're trying to win a championship, so I got to play a role that I'm given." And, he has, I think, really attempted to take this to heart. He had that essentially game-winning defensive play against Milwaukee, blocking game in space.
Game clinching, if nothing else.
Yeah. But I feel like with Dinwiddie, there's an element of this going too far, because as much as I think he really has attempted to be a defensive guy on this team, he's been fine, occasionally very good, like in OKC, but that's not really his greatest overall strength. He is a score-first player, and it feels like they're taking away some of what makes him, but also by extension, the bench with, they knew he was going to be a part of, less dangerous. Because I was looking up numbers, Brian, I took a look at usage rate on the team. His is the lowest usage rate of anybody who plays rotation minutes or who has played rotation minutes. Like, he has a lower usage rate than Jackson Hayes, who I'm pretty sure is not allowed to dribble. It's a shockingly low for both a point guard and a scoring guard. It is a shockingly low usage rate.
Let's talk about this a little
under
bit more.
11.
Yeah, let's talk about this a little bit more when we come back, because I have some thoughts about that. We also want to get into these injury updates. Jared Vanderbilt, a little bit of news around him that emerges as the week begins. And folks, you got to proofread your work. All that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by BetterHelp, and we all need the opportunity to get things off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really get to you, and it's really important to let that out and find somebody unbiased in your life that you can share these thoughts with. Like, for example, we do this show, Locked on Lakers, with the hope that it can be an escape from real life for all of our listeners, all of our viewers. There can be a stress relief in enjoying a Laker game, coming together with fans, bouncing thoughts off each other, venting, whatever. But we all know there are more pressing issues in life, even for the most diehard Laker fan, than the purple and gold. We all have real life problems. And again, it's important to be able to share them with a professional. I can speak to how therapy helped me and my family during a really difficult period in our life. And therapy can be different for everyone. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, getting a more empowered life, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited for your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba.
So before we totally get rid of this topic of how dangerous the Lakers may or may not be, I have one more thing I want to throw in there, which we'll get to here in a second. A really, really interesting number that was tweeted out by Alex Regla of Silver Screen and Roll. But let's finish this Dinwiddie conversation, because you mentioned the usage rate, and if you want to compare it to, because he's actually been pretty consistently over the last few seasons in that low 20s, high teens, low 20s. His high watermark in Brooklyn, back when he, put up a career high scoring for a full season and all these other things was around 29. It's a little high. But like for the efficient version of Dinwiddie that the Lakers want, it is probably in that high teens, low 20s or whatever. I doubt that the Lakers are telling him, don't score, and I'm not saying that that's what you're saying that he was, well, that they're saying, don't be aggressive offensively. I think what this gets to is part of the reason that late season acquisitions, that particularly buyout guys, tend to have less impact than we make a big deal out of whenever the buyout market comes. Oh my God, this guy got that. I mean, most of the time they don't make that big of a difference, with some exception. It's because of things like this. When the Lakers traded Westbrook, they completely reconstructed the team. So other than LeBron and AD, basically, everyone kind of got a new role offensively. It wasn't, there were 6 guys who were suddenly doing something different. Dinwiddie's got to come in and operate in an already existing ecosystem. And, he's trying. Your hope is that your inclination for the players you bring in is that they're not going to come blow things up. And I think there can just be a tendency both to overcorrect, but also it is hard to find a way, because the Lakers don't want to start from scratch because they have Spencer Dinwiddie, and Dinwiddie's trying really hard not to upset the apple cart because he's on a team with LeBron and AD and an established hierarchy and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it gets to, I doubt anybody is saying the wrong thing. I'm sure they would love Dinwiddie to be scoring 16 points a game off the bench. Finding the way to do that, I think, is more complicated in any team on any context than it is often given credit.
That may be the case. I think to some degree, though, the answers are pretty self-evident. He's going to need to have the ball in his hands more. He's going to need to take more shots. Right. He's going to need to be more like the version of Spencer Dinwiddie that has been in the NBA his entire career. And, if you want to get the most out of him, particularly for a bench that really is like, until maybe Christian Wood comes back, theoretically re-enters the rotation, and also, I guess, given a more definitive scoring role with the team, other than Torian, he's the only guy, Dinwiddie, playing on the bench that has any track record as a scorer at all. Like, Jackson Hayes can be effective as a roll man, as a lob threat, at, cutting baseline or whatever, but all of his offense has to be supplied for him and basically served up on a silver platter. Like, I don't mean that as a diss against Hayes. It's just that's the player that he is. Cam Reddish. Cam Reddish.
You don't want him on ISO Island, Jackson.
No, absolutely not. That's not who he is. Cam Reddish is, assuming he's ever consistently healthy again. Mentioned it before. I mentioned it again. I think they need to figure out if he can play or not play and just make a decision. But either way, he's not a scorer. If Darvin Ham decides at some point, I can keep Max Christie on the court for more than 8 minutes a game without the world falling off its axis, he's not a scorer. It's really Dinwiddie and Torian. And between those two, Dinwiddie's the only guy who serves as a dual threat offensively in terms of scoring and creating. Like, I feel like if you want to get the most out of him, some of these other guys, especially like LeBron or D'Lo or Reeves, who can be, I think, much more functional with more utility off ball than Dinwiddie, I think they may need to adjust a little bit in order to get the most out of just having this guy on the court. Because if you're looking for Dinwiddie to largely provide defensive utility, I believe that he will work for that. It's just not the best use of him.
Right. And some of this may be guys, like when D'Lo was heat checking his way to 44 points, LeBron, I think it was that game. LeBron, he passes LeBron throws it back to him like in anger.
Sure.
Shoot the ball. I'm not actually, I think it was the other game, but it doesn't matter. It was when he hit the 3 threes in a row.
Yeah.
And like LeBron, the third one was like a circus shot. LeBron just threw him, like, I don't want it. You are red hot. Take the shot. Like, there may be a little bit of that. Like, it may need to come from the players as much as anything, where they put, but like this is where winning some games and getting some margin, would help, because then you feel like you have a little bit of wiggle room for failure. I am pretty sure Dinwiddie feels constrained to some degree by like the situation the Lakers are in. They can't afford to mess around with possessions or, spend 3 games and with a little less efficiency or whatever, because we got to figure out where Spencer fits in. Because you're right. You do point out, like, he is on the floor. It's not like he's on the floor with the 4 other. If he was only playing with Hayes, Christie, and, Cam Reddish and whatever, he'd be in Torian, he'd be taking more shots, but he plays with those other guys too. And so it's a hard situation if they can. He
also plays 25 minutes a game. Like, that's a long time for him to be on the court, not playing to his strengths.
That's the point, is like, but those minutes come with the other starters. And so it may just be a question of those other guys almost pushing him. Because again, I am 1,000% sure that the coaching staff does not have a problem with Spencer Dinwiddie being aggressive offensively. I'm sure they don't want him to take bad shots, but that's a whole other separate question. But it's just hard. Like, it is hard to incorporate. Look how hard it's been to get Christian Wood as an offensive minded player whose status in the offensive pecking order is way down. It's been hard to figure out how to get him into a role that's comfortable, that makes sense, where you're really productive in those limited minutes. It was hard for Rui, and now he's doing a little bit better as a 35-minute a night guy. It helped. It's really hard. And this is why these late season acquisitions doesn't make Dinwiddie a bad acquisition. And it also doesn't mean that he couldn't become really handy in the playoffs. It just means that this is hard. And it remains to be seen what they can get out of him, and it may not be anybody's fault.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is a guy that over the course of his career has averaged almost 11 field goal attempts per game. He is currently averaging 5 rounding up, like per 36
per week.
Per 36, he's averaging 7 shots per game. Like,
no, I'm not. You're 100% right. I find this scenario. Let me throw this number out from Alex Regla before we go to break and get into some of these other things. Some tragic editing errors and some of Jared Vanderbilt update. So Alex Regla has been keeping track of this all year long. And when you talk about reasons to believe in the Lakers, this is one of them. With their win last night, at Alex M. Regla again from Silver Screen and Roll. With their win last night, the Lakers are now 16-12 against teams in the top 10 in net rating this season. Their point differential in those games has also climbed to 5th best. So ironically, Andy, the Lakers have like the worst point differential in the Western Conference among teams in the top 10. But if you only count the good teams, they have one of the best point differentials against the teams in the top 10 in net rating. They have the only teams with a better record, the only teams that are better in terms of that differential, I should say, than the Lakers are the Thunder, the Bucks, the Celtics, and Minnesota. I would like to point out the Lakers have beaten all 4 of those teams, a few of them more than once. So the big problem with the Lakers in, stringing together wins, that's one of them. It's that they lose too much to the terrible teams. It's not that they can't beat the good ones.
Any team that's spent most of the season hovering around 500 has earned the right to play down to the level of their competition. So, you can't blame them.
That's true. All right, let's get to the Vando update and then some really comically bad execution news that came out on Monday. All of that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Nissan. And are you the kind of driver that loves to push things just a little bit further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. The class exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store, they're built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment center. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. And Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It's got room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, advanced available 4x4 capability, 284 horsepower, and up to 6,000 pounds towing it. Basically, the weight of a small female elephant. It's a lot of towing power. Take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com.
So this Andy from Jovan Buha, The Athletic, was talking on a live stream recently about Jared Vanderbilt. And while calling it speculation, informed speculation, I think is a good way of phrasing it, about Jared Vanderbilt, whether or not he'd be back this year. Quote, the latest I heard was yes. I've heard Vando is progressing upward. Sounds like he's going to be back this season. It's just a matter of timing. Is it 2 weeks from now? Is it 4 weeks from now? That's a big difference. And that's the end of the quote. Obviously, also, Andy, a big difference is which version of him they get back, because they need the full speed Vando versus the guy who came back from injury at the beginning of the season. But I'd be willing to kick the tires on him just to find out.
Yeah, it is extremely important to get Jared Vanderbilt back. I have talked about this a lot. His absence throughout the course of this season, with literally the beginning of it, I think has really proven his value with this team and his singularity as a player on this team. It also speaks to, maybe not entirely the reason, but certainly a piece of why the Lakers, during this period where their offense has just been through the roof, they have not been consistently dominating teams. It's because their defense has fallen off a cliff. There was a period where the Lakers were a defense first team. We are no longer in that period. Over the last 15 games where I gave all those great offensive stats, the Lakers 20th in opponent field goal percentage, 25th defensive rating, 25th defensive rebounding percentage, 27th in opponent points in the paint, 22nd in opponent second chance points, and 24th in opponent fast break points. The big saving grace is the Lakers during this period have led the league in opponent field goal attempts. Like, they've still done a really good job keeping opponents off the line, but there has been a lot that needs to get cleaned up defensively. Again, Jared Vanderbilt does not cure it all, but if you listen to all those different items where they are lacking, rebounding, maybe better head of the snake defense so the paint doesn't become something where Anthony Davis is trying to go in 7 different directions at once, Vando's missed.
He is. And I think the point that you made about singularity is really what matters here. It's not this is the place where I think I underestimated, based on the roster that they had, how important he would be. It's not that I didn't think he'd have value, but I remember at the beginning of the season, I wasn't sure how much he was going to play based on what I thought the rotation was. No, we had conversations about just like guys who could get squeezed, what it could look like, and all that kind of stuff, like where certain people fit in, again, based on what you anticipate the rotation looking like. And depending on how many,
yes, you're correct.
At the beginning of the year, and so and that was even after, like, they signed the guy and it was a great idea to do it. It's just year to year, you don't know.
Let me rephrase. My I guess question was, if Vando doesn't start, I don't know where he was going to play. Mm-hmm. If he started, I knew exactly where he was going to play.
Like, because he's in the starting lineup.
Right, but I'm saying I felt like if he didn't start, it was a question. I also thought he should start. So,
but either way,
that's more what I meant.
Sure, but either way, it's like it's not 100% from like, oh yeah, this guy's a 25-minute a night, 30-minute a night, whatever it is, put it in pen. And I think that's just, as it has turned out, his skill set just isn't replicated really anywhere on the roster defensively. And that has been a really big problem for the Lakers. Gabe Vincent also progressing. The Lakers hope he could be back before the end of the month as well. Don't know where he fits in, how that impacts the Spencer Dinwiddie conversation we've been having. Gabe Vincent has not played at all this season. And so integrating him, or just getting him up to speed and feeling like he can really play. But again, good to have the option.
I mean, look, if you're not going to let Dinwiddie be Dinwiddie to some degree, if you're just looking for him to be a defensive guard out there, Vincent might actually be a better option, assuming he's healthy. And if you're not asking either one of the guys to ever handle the ball, then I guess integrating Vincent might be easier than I thought.
Yeah, I mean, he's smaller though. I mean, I think one of the things that does help with Dinwiddie is the length. So we'll see. Sure. We'll see how this goes. And really, it's a moot point until these guys are closer to being back, because as Jovan notes, there is a big difference, particularly with Vanderbilt, in 2 weeks and 4. So anywho, I'm surprised. The news came out on Monday, some tweets, Andy, photographing the Kobe Bryant statue that apparently doesn't have one typo or even 2 typos, but 3 typos.
Oh, well, it has 3 typos that one guy in particular has caught. A guy named Dre Voigt. He's a German basketball player and I guess journalist. Also in his Twitter bio.
Leave it to the Germans, always dotting their I's and crossing their T's to find the mistakes in our statues.
Yeah, he also lists himself as a squirrel addict. I don't know what that means, but he has found 3.
Nor do I want to.
No, I'm going to leave that between Dre and his squirrels. But he found 3 typos. The first is this is from the box score of Kobe's 81-point masterpiece. Brian and I were both at that game. Jose Calderon's name is misspelled in the box score transfer over to the statue. They printed the box score. He is listed as Jose Calderson, which is both a terrible typo. And also, people may forget, Jose Calderon was a former Laker.
Former Laker, that's right.
Right. So you are disrespecting a former Laker on top of absolutely just butchering his name. The second is coach's decision is misspelled Decision, which for a second I was like, okay, maybe they got too cute by half. And I was like, is decision spelled this way in Spanish? And like, this was a way that they were trying to like speak to Kobe's, presence in the Spanish speaking community of LA. Like, it's spelled the same way in Spanish, just with an accent.
and it is spelled correctly right above it. Right above it.
And then thirdly, on the Laker part of the box score, and this is egregious, DNPCD for Vom Wafer. Vom Wafer, one of the all-time favorite Lakers of Brian and I. Like, this is where it got personal.
My for people who don't know, my long-running fantasy team that I've been playing, same league with a bunch of different guys, including Mike Trudell and other Lakers journalists that people know. The name of my team is Slavon Waferdenko, combining Slava Medvedenko and Von Wafer, my two favorite cult Lakers. So this one was particularly offensive to me.
We covered Von Wafer,
right? Both because I love Von Wafer and also how the bleep do you misspell Von?
Yeah, I mean,
it's 3 letters, man.
I mean, think of the grocery store. You got Vons all over this city.
The Lakers apparently, when asked about this, said that we are aware of the mistakes and are working, to fix it. I would love to know when they saw them. Like, is this something that somebody picked up? Because I got to be honest with you, I am shocked that it's taken this long for photos of these mistakes to emerge.
Yeah.
Because it's been weeks, really, since this statue went up.
I will admit, I took a look at the statue at a game that I was doing halftime and post-game radio for ESPN LA. And admittedly, I didn't spend hours poring over the statue, but I took a look at all these different parts and none of it jumped out at me. You would think Von Wafer's name is spelled. Well, I would immediately notice.
Well, but we're not really looking at the box score, and then 2 of the mistakes are in the Toronto part of the box score. By the way, somebody pointed this out on Twitter. It made me laugh. I can't imagine having your DNPCD immortalized in granite, like or marble. Like it's cool. I was there, but like coach, coach decided against it.
Actually, given what happened in this game, if you're a Raptor, I would actually rather be immortalized. Not my fault.
Yeah,
Kobe didn't put up 81 on me.
I'm sure Jalen Rose would probably be like,
yeah. Kobe put up 81 on those guys. He did not put up 81 on me.
Like, but even I didn't remember that Pape So played 10 minutes in that game. And so, good for it. It'd just be really cool to be immortalized in that thing. Like, yes, I was there. I played that game. The other thing is that I would like to point out, in fairness to these people, this is 100% would be like my nightmare job. Proofreading the Kobe statue would give me ulcers on my ulcers, on my ulcers, on my ulcers. I would be double and triple and septuple checking it, and I know I would still make a mistake. This is the nightmare fuel for me.
If it were my job proofreading Kobe's statue, I would never leave. Like, I'd still be there even after the statue was up. I would just be living there with like a bedpan for peeing. I would just be there all day, every day, ordering DoorDash. Like,
I would have taken my salary and outsourced. I would have hired 3 or 4 proofreaders for my proofreading out of my salary just to double check my work. I would be so terrified. Oh my God. Like, so I do feel bad for the guy who didn't catch that decision was spelled correctly an inch above not, but I don't know how this happens, but
well, I mean,
it's not good.
the N and the M for Vaughn, the keys are right next to each other. I mean, still, come on, man. Like,
because I'm sure this is all like laser printed at this point. But anyway, the Lakers.
You can't. I mean, how do you get that?
Classic Laker Jose Calderson.
I mean,
obviously it takes this beautiful Spanish name, this flowing Spanish names, and turns him into the guy who lives at the end of your cul-de-sac.
I know.
Well, Chucky Calderson over there. Anyway.
Joey Calderson. He became Joey Calderson.
Joey Calderson. All right, so Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out, see the show, discuss typos and editing mistakes with 23,000 subscribers. Matt George is going to join us on the show for tomorrow to preview Lakers versus Kings. Host of Locked On Kings, does a bunch of TV work up there for in Sacramento. Great host, great insights. We'll talk about that Western Conference and that game and everything. And we will see everybody tomorrow. Thanks a lot.